I paid £999 for this phone. It has a single lens camera, no ultra-wide, no telephoto, mono speaker, and is eSIM only. Let me explain. I used to use an iPhone 15 as a secondary slash business phone, but recently gave that up. And in this video, I'm going to explain to you why, and specifically why the iPhone Air is probably the best second phone you can buy right now. So the iPhone 15 wasn't a bad phone, to be fair, and it lasted me a good few years and did everything I wanted to do. But when you're carrying two phones, you want that second phone to be as light and thin as possible. And the iPhone 15 wasn't really cutting it. Also, there were some compromises with regards to its performance, and that's where the iPhone Air comes in. You still get the flagship performance in a super thin and lightweight body. The chipset on the iPhone 15 was an A16 chipset, and it did a perfectly serviceable job. Anything from reviewing documents, answering emails, to uploading some content onto social media, it worked absolutely fine. But there were moments where you're uploading a 4K content where it would struggle. And then there's the other reason, and that's a more aesthetic reason, and that was the iPhone 15 was just a little bit boring, a little bit safe compared to the iPhone Air, which is obviously significantly thinner and more exciting. And ever since I've had this and I've picked this up every time, I've enjoyed having this in hand and using it, which is one of the many reasons, and another reason being it's significantly more powerful too. On the design front, the reasons for having an iPhone Air are pretty obvious. That slender package, and I know there is the compromise of a single lens camera, but we will get to that in a second. And the build, grade 5 titanium all over, means this phone is actually very, very durable and super solid. And we actually stuck this really sick skin on the back of this phone just to kind of make it look a little bit more different. Without a case, it is pretty slippery in hand, though I would say the overall profile of the iPhone Air is lush, especially in hand. The display, it's a 6.5-inch Super Retina XDR OLED with 120Hz, and using this regularly is sick. And this comes to another point. The iPhone 15 had a 60Hz panel. This is 120Hz. So navigating around here, opening and closing apps, doing anything you wanted to do is super fast, intuitive, and quick, and doesn't have any crashes at all. And coming from a phone that is 120Hz to one that's 60, you do feel that slowdown in how it operates. That display though, when it comes to content playback, indoors or outdoors, is amazing. It's 3000 nits of peak brightness here, and anything you do watch is super crisp and detailed. And it's one of the allures of the iPhone Air versus the iPhone 15 is a slightly larger display that's just more vibrant and a bit more crisp. On the performance front, you get the A19 Pro chipset in here. This has 12GB of RAM, 256GB of storage, so anything you do on here will be super fast, intuitive, and you won't suffer any crashes. So if you're editing 4K content on here to upload to social media, it will be flawless and work perfectly. Then to dive deeper into the performance, if you run this through single core and multi-core benchmarks on Geekbench, you'll again see really high level performance. And then on Tutu, you're getting a chipset that is at the bleeding edge here. And what's interesting is the temperatures in here, even though it's such a slim body, are still really well managed, and battery performance, even running through that test, is pretty decent. As a comparison, let's compare the iPhone 15 versus this iPhone Air using Nano Review, and you can see immediately on here there's a significant jump in performance. In fact, it's over 50% on Geekbench and Antutu when you compare it, and you can feel it daily. Also, this has Apple's own C1X modem built into it, which manages all the calls and all the Wi-Fi. And I would say it's been incredibly reliable. No issues at all with signal or messages not sending. And then Wi-Fi support and data support as a whole, again, has been super reliable, with again, no drop off or poor signal. On the connectivity front, this is my first issue. This is eSIM only, which for a lot of people will not matter, but it's the first time I've actually ever used eSIM because I'm just OG and want a physical SIM, and I was without service for around 4 hours. So this was a Wi-Fi only phone for roughly 4 hours. Now that may not matter to a lot of people, but for some people it will be a factor, especially if you're looking to switch SIMs quickly. For example, if you're traveling abroad or you have other things that you want to switch out, it will cause issues. So factor that in. If you're looking to switch to a phone that's eSIM only, there are some limitations. On the battery front, no shocker, this is a big compromise because it's a tale of two stories. My daily phone will get me 8 to 9 hours of screen time. I charge it maybe every 1.5 to 1 3/4 days, even with heavy usage. Here, I'm charging this every evening. So say 6, 7 o'clock, I'm charging it every evening, and I'm not using this as my daily driver. This is probably getting 3 hours of use a day maximum, absolute maximum, and I'm charging it daily. So if you wanted to daily the iPhone Air, factor in that you're going to be recharging this regardless at least once a day. If you're a heavy user, you're probably going to have this on charge fairly regularly. So factor that in, that the battery is the biggest downside of this particular phone. Then the camera, again, another real issue. For me, not an issue, but let's talk about it anyway. 48 megapixel rear lens, which is Apple's Fusion lens, which is just a 48 megapixel single sensor. And shockingly, it's actually really impressive. Nicely detailed images here, and they are well balanced with which capture a lot of sharpness without being overly saturated. The most important lens here, of course, is the front lens. And I'll explain. 80 megapixel with center stage, which means you could recreate a wide angle view here, and you also get 4K 60 FPS. So if you're vlogging on this phone, or if you're creating content on this phone, then the front-facing sensor on here is excellent. In fact, we have just started shooting a lot of content using the front-facing sensor of this phone, just off the cuff, to bring more around about news, etc., and is working incredibly well. To be fair, I would say the rear lens on this I only used just to give you some photo samples here. Otherwise, it's always been the single lens at the front that I've used, and I've really enjoyed it, and the quality is very good. So is the iPhone Air a really good business phone or slash second phone? Yes, it's excellent, and there are some huge compromises, battery being the biggest one, camera being another. But for me, as somebody who has a flagship Android device that I use daily, that doesn't matter. I only ever use the front-facing sensor to record social media posts, for example, on TikTok Shorts and IG. Otherwise, I never use the lenses. And then the battery, again, is a huge compromise. You're charging this every other day. But if this acts as your second phone, chances are the uses of it won't be as much as your main phone. And for that reason, it is great. The performance is excellent. The display is amazing. Build quality is really good. And iOS as a whole, as a system, works really well with my MacBook in terms of synchronizing. So if you're after a second phone or a business phone or something that gets you away from having everything just in a single phone, then the iPhone Air is an excellent, in fact, perfect solution as a second phone slash business phone. But let us know in the comment section below if you have an alternative to this particular phone. Let us know in the comment section below. And if you found this review useful, please follow along. Until the next one, as always, we out.